This time we're going on a journey of inner work and self-recovery.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
Like a 13th century Sufi mystic.
Okay.
And then Feelings and Reason by psychologist Ernie Vecchio.
So ancient wisdom and modern psychology, I'm in.
Exactly. We'll be looking for connections between these two, what they say about the human condition and all that.
It's amazing, though, isn't it, how these two figures from totally different worlds can have such similar ideas about self-discovery.
Yeah, like one's all poetic and mystical and the other is, clinical observations. But somehow their messages just, click.
It's true.
So one thing that really stuck out to me was how both Rumi and Vecchio, they really emphasize the role of ego in our internal struggles.
Yeah, that's huge. They both see it as a big roadblock to self-recovery.
Totally. But it's not just that they both point to the ego, it's how they each approach it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Rumi, in his poem, Who Says Words with My Mouth, he describes this detachment from his own actions and thoughts.
Really?
Yeah, he's aware of some force beyond the ego that's driving him.
Wow.
He even says, this drunkenness began in some other tavern. The day is coming when I fly off. But who says words with my mouth? Who's really in control,
Yeah, that's a powerful image. And then Vecchio, he approaches it from a psychological angle.
Right.
Talking about how the ego, all messed up by past experiences and cultural stuff, can twist our perception of ourselves and the world.
Totally. He uses this analogy of two lives. The outer one, what's actually happening to us, and the inner one, how we interpret it.
Interesting.
So basically, we filter everything through our ego, which obviously causes a ton of internal conflict.
Makes sense. So Rumi's poetic exploration of that force beyond the ego actually kind of lines up with Vecchio's clinical observations of how the ego can hide our true nature.
Right. They're saying the same thing, but in totally different ways.
Exactly. And this whole idea of the ego's limitations seems like the starting point for inner work and self-recovery for both of them.
Absolutely. It's step one.
Okay, so it's not just about being aware of the ego. It's about actively working to move beyond it, to find something deeper within us.
Right. And this leads us to another common theme, the importance of inner work itself.
Oh, for sure. Both Rumi and Vecchio really stress the need to look inward, to deal with past wounds, and finally figure out who we really are.
It's digging deep.
Yeah. And Rumi, the master of metaphors, he has this one where he compares desires and wants children playing at sexual intercourse.
Whoa, okay.
Pointing out how these superficial desires can actually distract us from genuine connection. He writes, and other wantings, you're like children playing at sexual intercourse. Experience that breeding. From books and words come fantasy. And sometimes from fantasy comes union.
Wow, that's provocative.
Right. And then there's Vecchio, who, in his work with trauma patients, also really emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between our inner and outer lives.
Yeah, realizing there's a difference.
Exactly. He writes, two totally different stories happening simultaneously, with the subjective reality rarely reflected upon or examined. I learned that the greater disparity between what happens to us and our interpretation of it, the more we suffer. So his therapy focuses on bridging the gap between those two lives, encouraging self-awareness and introspection.
Fascinating.
So we see this parallel emerging. Rumi talks about going beyond those surface desires to find a kind of union.
Yeah.
And Vecchio aims to help patients align their internal and external experiences.
Bridging the inner divide.
Right. It's about recognizing that true fulfillment doesn't come from chasing external stuff, but from cultivating a deeper connection with ourselves and something bigger.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. And both Rumi and Vecchio suggest that this whole journey inward, this inner work thing, it's not always easy.
Oh, no, definitely not.
It can involve confronting really tough emotions, challenging our beliefs, and facing the unknown.
It's scary sometimes, but it's worth it.
So true. And both of them acknowledge that suffering, while painful, can actually be what pushes us towards self-discovery and growth.
Like a catalyst.
Exactly. Rumi put it beautifully. The knowing of mystic lovers is different. Deny your desires and appearances, and a real mount may appear under you. It's as if facing our suffering head-on can lead to a spiritual awakening.
Powerful stuff.
And then Vecchio, from his clinical work, sees how trauma, while awful, can actually shatter those limiting beliefs we hold and force us to confront our true selves.
Like a breakthrough.
Yeah. He calls it the upside to severe trauma. He's noticed how patients often experience these huge shifts in perspective after going through tough times. He even has this metaphor about a candle with 30 layers.
30 layers.
Yeah, representing the ego's defenses. So when those layers get pierced, like during a trauma, he says oxygen rushes the candle. And obviously a candle can't go out when there's more oxygen. It just burns brighter.
Oh, I see.
He uses this to explain how facing our deepest fears and pain can actually spark a deeper strength and resilience inside us.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Isn't it? It's amazing how Rumi's idea of embracing suffering for spiritual insight lines up with Vecchio's observation of trauma leading to personal growth.
It's all about facing challenges head-on instead of avoiding them.
Right. Both Rumi and Vecchio are telling us that real growth comes from those tough experiences.
So we have these two guys, totally different backgrounds, different language, but they're saying similar things about personal growth.
Totally. Rumi, with his mystical poetry, invites us to contemplate and interpret his words in our own way.
Makes you think, yeah.
Like lines like, gone inner and outer, no moon, no ground or sky. It hits you on an emotional level.
I get that.
And then Vecchio, using the language of psychology and clinical observation, he gives us clear explanations and examples to help us understand these complex concepts.
Two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And by encountering both of these approaches, we get a more complete understanding of inner work and self-recovery.
Like seeing the same landscape from different viewpoints.
Yeah. It gives us a much richer picture of what it means to embark on this journey of self-discovery and healing.
I like that. And what's so important here is that both sources emphasize that this journey isn't about becoming someone else.
Right. It's not about being perfect.
It's about uncovering who you truly are underneath all the layers of conditioning and the limitations of the ego.
Yes. Embracing our imperfections, the good, the bad, and everything in between.
Exactly. It's not about achieving some ideal version of ourselves, but about peeling back those layers and being real.
So true. And both Rumi and Vecchio, they agree that this process of self-discovery, while challenging, is so rewarding in the end.
It's like the ultimate payoff.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on all of this so far? What's sticking with you as we delve into this shared message of inner work and self-recovery?
It really is inspiring to see these two sources from completely different worlds arriving at a similar understanding of the human journey. Almost like it's a universal truth about self-discovery, right?
Totally. Makes me wonder how we can actually apply these insights to our own lives. Like how do we peel back those layers of ego and find that deeper truth?
Well, both Rumi and Vecchio would agree that inner work is key. Rumi, the mystic, talks a lot about transcending superficial desires and connecting with something beyond our individual selves. He uses this striking image, a diver's clothes lying empty, to describe shedding those outer layers and diving deep into the unknown.
That's such a powerful image. It really captures the essence of inner work, right? Yeah. Letting go of who we think we are to discover our true selves.
Exactly. And Vecchio, the clinician, he gives us a more structured approach, talking about helping patients distinguish between their inner and outer lives and encouraging introspection and self-awareness.
I see.
He says it's super important to bridge that gap, to integrate both internal and external experiences for a sense of wholeness.
So we have these two paths to inner work, the mystical path of Rumi, focused on transcending the ego, and the psychological path of Vecchio, focused on self-awareness and integration. But ultimately, both lead to the same place, right? A deeper understanding of ourselves.
Yes. And both acknowledge this path isn't always easy. It often means facing tough emotions, challenging beliefs, and embracing the unknown.
Right. Rumi doesn't shy away from the darkness and challenges of spiritual seeking. Like in The Fragile Vial, he writes, "The fragile vial inside me often breaks. No wonder I go mad and disappear for 3 days every month with the moon. I've lost the thread of the story. Narrative, poetics, his dream of Hindustan again. My elephant returns destroyed, my body a dissolve, a Rome destroyed." He's so real about the inner turmoil that comes with this kind of deep exploration.
It's so raw and honest, right? And Vecchio, in his work with trauma patients, sees how confronting past wounds and challenging thinking patterns can be super painful. He even gives an example of this patient who was blinded in prison and just completely shut down, wouldn't even leave her room. He said her nightmares had become so bad that her mental status was hanging by a thread. It's a harsh reminder that healing means facing our deepest fears.
It's remarkable how they both acknowledge suffering as a potential catalyst for transformation. Like in Saladin's Begging Bowl, where Rumi writes, "If I separated myself from you, I would turn entirely thorn. Every second, I drink another cup of my own blood wine. Every instant, I break an empty cup against your door. I reach out, wanting you to tear me open." He's suggesting that facing our pain and vulnerability can lead to a deeper connection with something beyond ourselves, a healing force.
Yes, exactly. And Vecchio, from his clinical observations, sees how facing trauma head-on, while difficult, can lead to self-awareness, resilience, and personal growth. He says his patients learn to embrace adversity as an integral part of human evolution. It's a powerful realization that even our most painful challenges can be opportunities for growth.
So it sounds like both are saying that inner work, while challenging, is ultimately worth it. It's about facing our demons, embracing vulnerability, and trusting a greater wisdom that guides us toward healing. What stands out to you about this?
It's reassuring, right, to know we have the strength within to overcome challenges and that those challenges can lead to amazing growth and transformation.
For sure. It's like a reminder that we don't have to avoid or suppress pain. We can lean into it knowing it has the potential for healing and freedom.
And both point to another key element of this journey, connecting with something larger than ourselves.
Right. Rumi frames it as a divine union, merging with something infinite, like in Five Things to Say, where he writes first, "When I was apart from you, this world did not exist, nor any other. Second, whatever you looking for was always you."
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It highlights the interconnectedness of everything, that divine spark within us and all around us. And Vecchio, even though he comes from a more psychological perspective, he also talks about this connection, maybe not in spiritual terms,
Why, yeah.
but he talks about recognizing and orchestrating intelligence, guiding our lives, even when we're not aware of it. He describes it as a force that's above, below, and to the left and right of me, a feeling of being held and supported by something bigger, something that can lead us toward healing.
Wow, that's powerful. It's amazing how these two, with different language and backgrounds, arrive at this idea of surrendering to something bigger than ourselves.
And this surrender seems tied to another key theme, the power of living in the present moment.
Yes. Rumi constantly reminds us to focus on the here and now, let go of worries about the past and future. He writes, "Gone, inner and outer. No moon, no ground or sky. Just being, fully present."
And Vecchio, from his clinical perspective, also talks about the importance of present moment awareness. He saw how trauma can make us dwell on the past or worry about the future.
He talks about his patients learning to embrace adversity, but also to find peace and presence in the midst of challenges.
It's like both are encouraging us to practice mindfulness, paying attention to our breath, our senses, the present moment as a way to connect with our true selves and find peace.
Such a powerful message in our busy world. It's so easy to get caught up in distractions and forget about the present. A good reminder that true happiness isn't about external achievements, but about that deep connection with ourselves and the now.